This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Happy Thursday as we welcome you into Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network. SiriusXM Channel 158, Stormy Bonatoni, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. I'm live in downtown Las Vegas, Circa Resort and Casino. JVT out there in San Francisco like he has been all week ahead of Super Bowl 60. What's going on, friend?
Nothing much. You know, it's been a busy few days. Not a lot of sleep, a lot of walking, which is I think that's good for your health. The walking part, at least. It's been great though. We got to talk to a lot of people, caught up with a few more, get some last minute interviews, some walk and talks. I also got flat out destroyed by some publicists as well. So this is a very fun time. And for the first time in my life last night, Stormy Bonatoni, got to ride in a driverless car yesterday.
No. Why even do that to yourself?
Yes. Well, it wasn't my idea. It was somebody else's idea. I had no idea that it was happening. And to be honest with you, my hotel from where I was only like a mile away. It wasn't that far of a walk. But I wanted to try it out. So somebody got it for me to try out. And it was quite the experience, dude. It was crazy. Like it drives on its own.
JVT, we were just talking about this yesterday about how I am terrified, first and foremost, of self-driving vehicles. I am not an AI person at all. The thought process of just the slightest thing going wrong and not having anyone behind the wheel is absolutely insane and ridiculous to me. And I was telling you how I can't believe anyone would get in one of those vehicles. And then you do it that day?
Yes, I'm sorry. I had to do it, though. It was quite the experience.
All right. Well, you said you took a video, right? So send me that later. I don't know. I'm very disappointed in you right now. I can't believe you did this. I can't believe you would go against me in this way. That said, you mentioned some of the guests, some of the walk and talks we have going. We have some guests that are going to join us live on the program today as well. So let's get into everything that we have ahead. And I'm going to continue to drive this vehicle that is the Rundown.
It's time for the top headlines and topics of the day. This is the Rundown.
So plenty of folks and opinions on the Super Bowl that we will get from out there at Media Row. Also on the program with us live, we will have Jeff Erickson of RotoWire give us some of his Super Bowl 60 props. He gave us a few of them last week, but now that we're just 3 days away from kickoff, if he has any more that he has added to the portfolio, as well as professional poker player and 1/4 JVT of the VSiN's Fade Us podcast, Brandon Cantu, going to join us later on in hour 2.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Brandon's got, I think, an interesting futures position that we can discuss with him. And speaking with Jeff, too, look, when you get all of this time to evaluate the player props, which he does all the time, I'm very curious to see if some opinions have changed, how much it has grown. You have 2 weeks to talk about this, obviously, and that means 2 weeks to add positions on this game. So I'd be curious to see how Jeff's thoughts have evolved since we talked to him 7 days ago.
And if maybe we're getting a little bit weird, if we're adding some of the more fun, high probability type stuff going on. Also, it is the last night in the NHL prior to the Olympic break. I texted you and Justin last night. I feel like the hockey betting gods recognized how brutalized I was on Tuesday. They gave me some positive juju yesterday. We got back on track with the bets, but going to tread lightly today on what is a 7-game card prior to that break leading up to, February 22nd when we come back?
Yes, of course. I know the hockey schedule like the back of my hand. But look, man, you got to get some balance. You got to find it wherever you can get it, and you got it yesterday. Nails, and so we'll see if you can keep this going. I've got good vibes as we head into it.
Man, I hope so. There is one game, at least tonight, that I really like. I will tell you why a little bit later. We'll also get into a little bit deeper of a dive of the Artemi Panarin trade that we discussed briefly yesterday. Speaking of trades, we are just about 1 hour out now, JVT, from the NBA trade deadline at 3 Eastern. The Milwaukee Bucks making a trade this morning. Cole Anthony and Amir Coffey headed to the Suns in exchange for Nick Richards and Nigel Hayes-Davis. Oh, wait, not the name you were expecting? Weird. No, according to reports, it appears Giannis Antetokounmpo will not be moved ahead of the deadline. The team has informed other teams around the league that is the case now, JVT. And yesterday when we were on the air, we did see Giannis Antetokounmpo was an odds-on number to remain with Milwaukee. Prior to that news coming down a few hours ago, he was out to even as high as 5-1, and that was prior to this coming down, like I said. So that appears that's the way that this is going to shake out when all said and done.
Yeah, this is probably going to be the lamest trade deadline in a while, at least in terms of hyping it up. But then also getting, some moves that do matter. I was kind of hoping we would get him moved before the deadline. And then you get like the normal cycle, which is teams like Miami who are in for guys like him, but then they're not going to get him and whatnot. So it seems like the most impactful deals are actually the two teams that are building for next year as opposed to this year.
Well, one team that was in the market for Giannis, the Golden State Warriors, apparently the pick-centric package they were offering not enough for a player of his caliber. They did end up still making a move to add before the deadline, bringing in Kristaps Porzingis in exchange for Jonathan Kuminga and Buddy Hield, who go out to the Hawks. What did you make of that initial move, and does it do anything for you with regard to Golden State?
I don't really think so. I mean, Golden State's a team that I've kind of now, like their current iteration, I think you kind of throw by the wayside. We've talked about it when the Jimmy Butler injury came down, right, Stormy, that they were a team that was probably maybe going to miss out of the playoffs, depending on how that play-in looks. It does get a little bit easier with the news that the Clippers, of course, ship off James Harden, but I don't know if you saw the report today that they're also shopping Ivica Zubac, which is kind of weird. I think maybe they're trying to get some draft capital. I thought that Zubac was going to be the untouchable piece for them at center, and you kind of go with him and Darius Garland off into the sunset. So we'll see. But look, I don't think they're a threat really in any way, shape, or form. Maybe they get into the postseason as an 8 seed and they will get eliminated. But I don't see a scenario, even with this current iteration, that they're going to be a team that should be feared when you get into a postseason, if you even get out of the play-in.
And I was just surprised a little bit given his injury history. I know that we've seen him be a difference maker in the playoffs, and Steph Curry with his career winding down a little bit. But I mean, even he's got a sore knee, as you mentioned. He's not available right now. Jimmy Butler not in for the rest of the season, but with specifically Porzingis with his injury history and how much time he's even missed lately with the Achilles, that was at least a little bit of a surprise to me.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I mean, I guess you're trying to buy low, and like you've been trying to get rid of Kuminga forever. Like the fully realized version of the Warriors with Kristaps Porzingis does have some intrigue to it, obviously. I mean, if you get the Kristaps Porzingis that helped Boston win the title a couple of years ago, that's a very good player. But like you said, I mean, he's got this Potts thing going on. He's not really available, and that is not something I think you can rely on. And as you have mentioned, you've already got Curry, who's got the miles on him as well. This was somewhat of an older team that had some fickleness to it in terms of availability, and that's kind of not the answer, but that's the way that you go. I don't really love it either, so I just don't think it's there, but I hope so. I mean, look, it would be fun to see Steph Curry and Kristaps Porzingis play together. I think that that's a duo that really works with Draymond Green next to them, and I think those lineups do have some versatility and some deadliness to them from an offensive standpoint, but are we going to trust that he is going to be there? Maybe you do have all these medical assistants, right? And you talk to him, and you're not going to make this deal unless you do your homework, so maybe they feel like he's going to come back and be fine at some point, but we haven't really seen that from him yet.
Are you at least annoyed with the Warriors that they enticed you to sprinkle a little bit on them in the futures market and then they go make this move instead of the honest one?
Yeah, I mean, look, it was a really small bet, so like it's fine. Which, by the way, because I'll say this: if our boy today, Carson Schlesinger, takes home some hardware tonight, then we'll be okay. But yes, I am a little annoyed at myself that I fell for the bait. So we'll see if that's the case, but we don't have to talk about it. Hopefully I can get something out of this.
That is a good note, though. Reminder for everybody out there, the NFL Honors is tonight, so we'll find out all of those awards winners finally. I think some stuff is still live on like Kalshi for prediction markets and everything like that, but we will finally know in the MVP race whether or not it's Matthew Stafford or Drake May. And that is, I think, at least going to be one of the closer ones. We'll see how the votes shake out when all is said and done. To continue on here with the NBA, though, you mentioned some of those moves that our team's building toward the future. Obviously, we saw what happened with the Dallas Mavericks and everything with Anthony Davis, which most of the response, I feel like, over the last 24 hours since this has all come down is that it now just makes the Luka trade that much worse in the eyes of what Dallas is trying to do and configure. But on the Washington Wizards side of that, what he and Trae Young can do, any moves that really did entice you to maybe want to buy in on a team this year at all? Or is it just kind of the more intriguing moves for those teams, like you said, looking toward the future?
Yeah, I don't think there's really anything that gets you to really jump in on either one of these teams or any of these teams. We talk about it all the time, Stormy, too. You want to make deadline before they happen. You want to jump ahead of them as opposed to react to them because you're not really getting as much. Maybe there is a world in which a team makes a move that you feel stronger about, and thus the market hasn't adjusted enough for you, but you're still kind of behind the 8 ball there when you're looking at that. So I think that when you look at some of these moves, there were some pretty strong pieces that were moved that are going to make some depth pieces better. But we'll see. I mean, look, I think we still have another 50 minutes. So maybe like John Morant goes somewhere and we'll see that he is an impactful piece for a certain team. We also have moves made that are made for post trade deadline in the buyout market. The Nuggets, for example, today, Stormy, they opened up a spot on their roster so they could go pursue somebody on the buyout market. Some of those can be somewhat impactful as well. So we'll see what happens. But right now, I don't think there's really a team that I look at and it goes like, yeah, like that's the team. I really want to push for that team. There's teams that I think are trying to make moves and they're making their desires known, like our Hornets, right? They're trying to push for the postseason. You really like that. And I think that's about it in terms of moves that would make you want to move on the market yourself.
Yeah, bringing in a player like Kobe White. A couple other moves I just thought were interesting. We talked about the Thunder trading for the young guard out of the Philadelphia 76ers, Jared McCain, and how good he was prior to his injury. Lonzo Ball is a free agent after the Jazz acquired and then waived him, and the Clippers traded Chris Paul to Toronto after the 2-month exile. So just a couple other interesting things of note. But like you said, we still have a little less than an hour before that trade deadline. Anything that else comes through, we will make sure we let y'all in on that information. And we'll talk more about the NBA a little bit later on because we do have an 8-game card, but I did want to, at least before we hit the break, tell you credit where it's due. I mean, nailed the Cavs Clippers last night. No sweat at all. I know it hurts your heart as a fan with LA, but great win for Cleveland. Never in doubt, 124-91 there. Okay, we got to step aside to hear that music. Coming up, the latest from San Francisco and Super Bowl 60, which includes some big injury news. A key piece of Seattle's defense got hurt at practice yesterday. We'll hit it all coming up on Money Moves.
So you're listening to this podcast because you want an edge. But what if I told you you're only halfway there? You've got the mindset. Now it's time to get the toolkit to match. Here's the thing. Pro bettors spend thousands on data and tools, but what they don't want you to know is that you can get the same edge for a fraction of the cost with VSiN Pro. VSiN Pro gives you access to expert picks, public betting data, prop projections, powerful tools, analytics, and more. Just tap the link in the description and see why thousands of bettors are already using VSiN Pro to cash more bets.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
All right, back here on Money Moves, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. And as we closed out last segment talking about 45 minutes out from the NBA trade deadline, what other moves might we see? We get another one from your Los Angeles Clippers a moment ago, JVT.
Yeah, unfortunately we do. Ivica Zubac is now a member of the Indiana Pacers. I'm trying to see exactly what the package is for him now. But as we were discussing it, right, that was right at the end. And I said, hey, look, there's reports that maybe Zubac is going to be on the move. And sure enough, that happens almost immediately when we go to break. So this is a good move for the Indiana Pacers, who are, again, gearing up for next year. Obviously, Tyrese Halliburton's on the mend. They're a team that could use like a really big body at center. He's not the stretch center, of course, that Miles Turner is and was when they made the run to the NBA Finals, Stormy, but he's a great shot blocker. He can serve as a lob threat. He can finish on his own. He can work in the low post. He's a good two-way player for a team. So I'm kind of bummed. Like, as a Clippers guy, that sucks. Zubac was awesome. So I think it's a really good piece for the Indiana Pacers. And we'll see. I think this also sets up, I mean, I was texting with our boys in the Harvard Handicappers group chat as well. I don't know why you would keep Kawhi if you're the Los Angeles Clippers right now. So to our point about, okay, so where do we look? Are we trying to get ahead of this? If it happens, who would it be? I mean, the Pistons were in that race for potentially landing him, but the fact that Jaden Ivey has been flipped, does that mean that they don't have the pieces that would then entice the Clippers to flip him? Stormy, does it mean that everything hanging over Kawhi still with this aspiration thing and the investigation, your teams maybe not want him because there's a suspension potentially coming? So there's a lot that goes into this, but it does seem like the Clippers are very much selling off and getting ready for the future, whatever that brings.
So how much does this surprise you? Because I know obviously the start to this season was a crushing blow, but they have been one of the hottest, if not the hottest teams down the stretch over the last, month and a half. And James Harden's the first piece of this off. But now if it's Harden moving, it's Zubac moving. Why would you want to go through this full retool rebuild when things were trending up and you were in a position to make the play-in playoffs?
I'm not entirely sure. I mean, the Harden thing did make some sense with the contract.
Well, he wanted out
back,
too,
whatever it was,
and he's just one of those types of guys. But go on, sorry.
No, I think you're right. Like that first move makes sense, but now, I mean, again, Zubac isn't extremely old. I kind of foresaw a scenario in which next year you kind of have a crack at it with Darius Garland if he's healthy and Kawhi Leonard and Ivica Zubac, and see what juice you get out of the squeeze this year, because everything's kind of house money if you continue to go and try to build on what you've been doing. But maybe you just kind of understand a couple of things. First off, that realistically, I was very big on them to make the playoffs. But if you got into a series with the Oklahoma City Thunder or the Denver Nuggets, how realistic was it that you were going to be able to make it out of it? You'd probably fight them pretty hard, but I don't know if you win that series. So maybe they just thought it was time to get some pieces and some draft capital for these guys. Again, I haven't seen what they've gotten for Zubac, but I would assume you get something pretty decent. And then we'll see. I mean, I was just looking at a couple of Clippers beat writers who just tweeted it out there. Send in your offers for Kawhi Leonard. You've got time. So it does seem like maybe that is the rumbling right now, that the Clippers might be the big surprise team that is shipping off pieces, and Kawhi Leonard is going to be a really strong piece if he lands somewhere.
Wow. Well, we will see what ultimately shakes out when all is said and done. We've got about 42 minutes before that 3 p.m. Eastern deadline. And even still, some stuff might trickle out after the deadline, just because you have to cross the T's and dot the I's on certain contracts before that information gets out. So we will keep tabs on it all as we go. It is obviously a big week in the NFL as well. We got Super Bowl 60 upon us. And yesterday, a pretty concerning injury, at least on the surface, for the Seattle Seahawks defense and their rookie stud safety, Emmanuel Imanwari. Although some positive news, it appears, in the last half an hour to an hour or so. You see this video on your screen of him getting out of the vehicle and limping to the hotel. He's dealing with what is officially a low ankle sprain. Did not look good initially when he got off the practice field. Coaches, teammates were coming up to him, comforting him. You see what he looks like trying to get into the hotel yesterday. But Mike Macdonald did say a little bit ago that he is fully expected to play Sunday. The team will be overcautious, however, going into the weekend to make sure he's okay after rolling his ankle in practice yesterday. So in your mind, at least initially, how much does this impact your view of his role in the Seahawks defense this weekend?
I mean, I would expect, like they're saying, that he's going to play. I mean, it's the Super Bowl. It's the last game. These guys are machines. They'll put everything they can into him and allow him to go out there. I'm going to be curious. I mean, we talked, actually, it's painfully ironic that we've actually just played the clip from Brian McFadden yesterday talking about Nick Imanwari and how effective he is in defending the run and setting the edge, and how good he has been in the box when he's asked to go and play down there. So this is going to be something that will be impactful if he's not fully healthy. I still think they're very good up front. So I think they're going to be fine in general, but he's good, man. I mean, if you want to call it a multi-tool player, I think is the term McFadden used. He can break up passes. He can cover. He can play in the box. So this is a versatile piece that is in danger now of not being as effective. But I would assume, Stormy, this is going to be out there. And, how much are you really going to alter your handicap, as much as it stinks for a good player? Mm-hmm. That one piece defensively might not be available at DB. That's something that is hard to, I think, really look at and see, okay, how is this going to affect X amount of props or the side or anything like that? That's going to be, I think, a little tough to at least to quantify when you're looking at breaking this game down with his injury.
And at least worth noting, too, while we show that video of him limping into the hotel, you should also notice there isn't a boot on the foot or anything like that, which is a positive sign. Everything that Mike Macdonald is saying and using the word confident that he's going to play, a positive sign. They have a walkthrough today, which will determine kind of what the plan is moving forward for the rest of this week. And it's something that we'll certainly keep tabs on. If he is limited, I guess that would force a couple guys like Ty Okada and Rick Woolen into slightly larger roles. Drake May, of course, led the NFL in pass yards per attempt this season. Seahawks defense allowed the fewest yards per pass attempt this season. So it's been on the surface, we know this is going to be a fun back and forth between those units. We'll see what it looks like. We have also, as you know, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so the video we keep playing, it's I believe it was a fan who made that video outside of the hotel. I think I've noted or mentioned to you that I'm staying at the Pro Bowl Hotel, and there's a lot of athletes here, a lot of NFLers here. You should see the amount of people. They have like a section cordoned off of people that are there for autographs and whatnot. And they have like all of their stuff with them. They have all the footballs and all that kind of stuff. Would you care to guess the average age of the people that are sitting there waiting for the autographs?
Oh, they're all old. They're all older,
Yeah.
like 30 plus year old people that are trying to get autographs to sell stuff online. And I hope, and I think largely a lot of those players walk right past them. They'll sign it for a kid, but they're not going to sign it for you.
That's that to me is the shocking thing. That not a single child. In fact, when I got my ride in my driverless car last night, they had to drop me off like a block away because the street that we're on is closed. So when I walked up, and it was fairly late in the night, it was probably about like midnight or so. They were still out there. They were still out there, and one of them gave me like a keep moving guy because I was walking by him. I was like, keep moving. I'm staying here, man. What are you doing?
Yeah,
they're weirdos.
So far for the course, unfortunately. Like, that doesn't surprise me at all, to be honest with you. What does surprise me, though, has been some of the reaction big picture, and we do have time to play some of the sound. So you've been gathering interviews. Dustin Sweetelson down on Radio Row has been gathering interviews, and I thought this was a really good soundbite from Christian Fourier, former national champion, 2-time Super Bowl championship tight end, uniquely qualified on speaking on these two franchises as he was drafted by and played for the Seattle Seahawks for a long time, won 2 Super Bowls with the New England Patriots. Here are his thoughts on how things are going to play out come Sunday.
What's the rallying cry when you hear the national pundits around question the schedule, talk about the playoff path, look at the stats for Drake May in comparison with all the numbers and try to bring him down versus Matthew Stafford for MVP? Do you feel like this is kind of the perfect spot for New England to have that galvanization as a group?
I don't know if that's it. I mean, they've been playing I don't know how much they can play the underdog role. I know people are diminishing their wins, especially in the postseason, based on, the offenses that they were playing against and how poorly Drake May played. So I can understand people looking at that. But I would say, listen, it ain't going to be easy by any stretch of the imagination. If Drake May plays the way he did in those 3 postseason games, they are going to lose. Absolutely, because the Seattle Seahawks, with that offense, if they get a short field, if they get an extra possession, they'll make the Patriots pay. That's why I see the biggest difference is that. So can the Patriots control the game? Can they limit the possessions on offense? Can they continually have long drives, chew up the clock, make the right decisions, not do anything stupid? They'll be in the game. I think the Seahawks can make some mistakes and overcome them. I don't think the Patriots can.
I think that's a really good point, JVT. You?
No, I think I would agree with that. In general, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, too. I mean, the mistakes obviously leading to short fields and the scores and getting it out of hand. Stormy, the reason why Drake May was able to make these big plays, even though he's not playing well, is because his defense allowed him to, because they were still in a tight game. Those mistakes leading to a larger gap, and if he continues to struggle, you're not going to be able to afford those at all.
It is pretty stunning to see. Like, I don't know if you've looked at some of the ESPN articles or the Athletic articles or CBS Sports, whatever it is overwhelming in favor of people that think Seattle is going to get this thing done. On ESPN, I think the only people that picked New England were former players. You got like Teddy Bruschi and a handful of these guys that they're the ones that picked New England. So we'll continue to dive into it all. Speaking of picks, we've got plenty of them up at VSiN.com, as well as our Super Bowl betting guide. And right now, if you're a full-time subscriber, VSiN.com/subscribe, you get that betting guide for free as a part of it, as well as all of our tools. VSIN.com/subscribe. Promo code MONEY to get $60 off for Big Game 60.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
This segment of Money Moves brought to you by Upside. Turn your gas purchases into real cash back with the free Upside app. You can download Upside now and use promo code SPORTS for 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. We are back. Stormy Montoni, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. Lots to get to over the course of the next 2 hours. We're keeping tabs on all things NBA trade deadline. We've got Super Bowl 60 upon us later on this week, but we've still got last day of hockey before the Olympic break and a lot of college basketball going on as well, which it was a crazy night last night in hoops, JVT. I know we'll talk more NBA a little bit later with what happened in the Knicks and Nuggets game and the full card coming up today, but Portland upsetting Gonzaga as a 22.5 point underdog. They were as high as 25-1 on the money line. That's ridiculous. BYU loses again. Michigan State loses again. Like a complete letdown after you thought they might get up off the mat after the loss against Michigan. What is going on with what happened last night?
Yeah, I know. We were out watching those games, and it was wild to see some of the results start coming in. I was amazed at what was going on, and I would throw in there, too, Utah State looking really good and beating the crap out of New Mexico in the late-night game as well. It was a wild night, and I think it just goes to show that all of these teams, it's still college basketball. The seam's pretty open. There's a lot of talented teams. You're going to stub your toe every once in a while. But I think the BYU one is probably the most shocking of them all. Not that it was the biggest upset, obviously. Huh?
Oh, I was going to say, that was the most shocking? More than Portland?
So, I was going to explain. So,
Okay,
the reason to me, though, is because they were in a spot where I think they needed that. You know, they were going through such a tough stretch, as we had talked about yesterday, and that was almost a game in which you could not lose. Mm-hmm. And so, to me, it was just surprising to see them fail the way they did. Obviously, yes, the biggest upset is Portland, and that is a big surprise. But it was shocking to me that BYU put up that defensive performance against Oklahoma State in a situation in which you're desperately trying to stop the skid and looking around at the Big 12 and going, dude, moving forward, we have all of these big games. We have to get back on track. We might lose those. And to lose this one, I mean, Stormy, this might be an avalanche that never ends. And so that's why maybe shocking is not the right term, but that I thought was maybe it's a better way to phrase it is that was the more impactful loss to me than the ones that we saw yesterday.
Definitely, because I think as we get closer to the March Madness bracket and selections being made and all of that stuff, this Portland loss is going to be a blip on the radar of what their overall body of work is for Gonzaga. But for BYU, this is huge because they still don't really have a statement win. And you're on the stretch right now where you've dropped 4 of your last 5 games. And granted, they're 2 great opponents. You mentioned how difficult the Big 12 is. It's 2 Texas Tech, Arizona, Kansas. Obviously, this loss to Oklahoma State, unexpected, especially as a 7.5 point favorite. But, oh, by the way, you've got Houston coming up on Saturday in a massive game. So it is tough sledding for them after what was a 16-1 start. They are sliding. Can they work their way out of it? I don't know. Meanwhile, this Gonzaga thing, though, I have to go back to it real quickly because we broke down this game a good bit, and I talked about liking the over, which gets there, but I did not expect it to go the way that it did by any means. You have this Pilots team shooting 59% from the floor. They opened it up in the second half. We're out to as high as a 15-point lead with about 4.5 minutes to go. Gonzaga did end up narrowing it late, but my goodness, I think shocked is absolutely the word that I would use to describe this one. It's the Zags' first quad 3 loss in 3 years. It snaps a 15-game losing streak. This is a Portland team that just lost by 30 and 23, respectively, to Washington State and Pacific. Like, this is not a team you expect that type of a performance from.
No, and I think you'll like these types of stories. Did you see their coach, Shante Legans, with what happened to him?
No.
So apparently, according to reports, in practice, I think it was this last week, they needed, because the team was so sick, they needed some bodies to help practice. And so he went out there to help practice on the floor, and he tore his Achilles while doing it. And today, or this game last night, he was supposed to be sitting on a chair, and he did not. Like the whole time he was out there, you can see his foot wrapped up and in a boot.
Awesome.
And he's like hopping on one foot the whole time because he tore his Achilles helping his team in practice the other day.
That's so baller. I'm here for it. And with that, Portland's first ever win over a top 10 team, their first ranked win in more than a decade. So awesome for him in that program as a whole. Talking college basketball here on Money Move, Stormy Buonantony, JVT with you. Only one nationally ranked team in action today. Michigan, a big 24.5 point favorite against Penn State. A handful of games, though, with some intrigue. Was there anything that caught your attention enough to either place a bet or think about it today?
Yeah, I think there's a couple. I mean, we've talked about like these teams and maybe some of the big boys going down for the most part. But obviously we have Michigan in action today taking on Penn State. They're laying a big number. It's 24.5 at last look here. And we're still looking at generally the same mark. But we've talked about this Michigan team, Stormy, and its failings against the spread, how it failed to cover 7 straight before beating Michigan State the other day on the road, 83-71. You just wonder if that is the market correcting itself and the fact that Michigan is getting back on the schneid here, or are we still looking at a team that is still being too heavily priced, a team that is being priced like it was when it was blowing teams out in the non-conference schedules we keep referring to. This is a really big number, as we talked about, for some of these matchups in a conference game. And to give Penn State some credit, they've looked a little bit more full of life. They have covered 2 out of their last 3. We saw Minnesota beat them, or they beat Minnesota the other day, 77-75. And so maybe this is a number that is too big. I'm always tempted to go against Michigan here, given their recent form and how high the market's been, and the market's been too high.
Yeah, well, hey, you said yesterday you didn't want to. You're like, would you want to sweat out laying 22.5 with this Gonzaga team? I'm not so sure, and I think that it's kind of a similar mindset with Michigan, with such a big number and a team that has been affable. With the question of a team having some inflated numbers, I think you could probably say the same thing for Michigan State, who also loses yesterday. And I'll ask you, because I know in that Michigan State-Michigan game, you did lean Michigan State at first blush. Are they a team that maybe we put in a tier that we shouldn't have too prematurely? Does that come into your mind at all with this Spartans team, just because it's Tom Izzo and it's Michigan State? Did we maybe put a little bit too much belief in them?
I mean, maybe. I think we generally, and I think Tom Izzo is generally a team and a coach that is overvalued by the betting market at times, just given, especially when you get to the NCAA tournament. What's the cliche now? January, February, Izzo. It's a thing that really permeates as at that time of year. But I would say when you look at Michigan State, these last 2 games, it's not just these. Remember, they got pushed, Stormy, to overtime by Rutgers in the game right before they went to go play Michigan. And you can maybe throw that away as they're looking ahead, whatever. But this offense, they have a turnover problem, and that has been kind of the issue under Izzo. You look at this, they're, I think, last in the Big Ten in offensive turnover rate. That is a really big deal. They don't take a lot of shots at the rim. They're a jump shooting team. Average 2-point attempt distance is second last in the Big Ten. They don't really get to the rim. That is, I think, going to be a problem for them. If you're giving up possessions, if you're not getting efficient shots, then your offense is going to suffer. And while their defense is incredible, they're very middle of the pack in Big Ten play and offensive efficiency. And I think that's going to be something that's going to burn them. And we've seen it burn them now a couple of times here in these contests that we're talking about. The loss to Michigan, they average less than a point per possession. So I think they're good. They're a good enough defense to make a big run. I just think that if and when they lose, they'll probably lose because of their offense.
76-73, the final last night at Minnesota. They were down, 16 with 4 to go. We're just listless, made a little bit of a run late for them, but they've got a big one coming up. So potential look ahead, obviously, in that spot. Illinois coming up Saturday. The Saturday slate this weekend looks awesome, too, as if we don't already have enough going on. Just add a great college hoop slate to the list. Ohio State, Maryland, Memphis, UAB, Long Beach State, UC San Diego. I know these are a couple other games on your radar. Any in particular you want to get to?
Yeah, I was curious about UC San Diego. We've talked about them a little bit, and obviously last year they were a big deal because they make that run to the NCAA tournament and eventually lose to Michigan. Their former head coach, now, of course, the head coach of New Mexico. And UC San Diego, if you remember, got off to that really hot start. They were 10-1, and they were a very good covering team. But since then, Stormy, they've really fallen on some hard times. They have now come into this. They've lost 3 straight, coming off an 81-64 beatdown at the hands of CSUN. And you just wonder, this is kind of what I always look at is, are we looking at a team that maybe we should buy at the bottom of the market? You look at some of these big numbers, though. I mean, again, here today, it's a pretty big spread for UC San Diego, just considering what we have seen from them recently. And is the market kind of refusing to budge here? But if you look big picture, in this 3-game losing streak, they have failed to cover their last 3 games and lost those 3. If you zoom out a little bit, they're 2-6 against the spread. And if you zoom out even further, they are 3-9 against the spread in their last 12. This is a team that has kind of been fading, but the market really hasn't adjusted on them. And I think maybe it's time to continue to fade them. We'll see if they can bounce back today, though.
Okay, and we will have our final best bets at the end of the program a little bit later on today. College basketball, NHL, NBA, all of that. Reminder before we head out of here on this quick break, no reason to pay full price for gas anymore. The free Upside app gives you real cash back every time you buy gas. Download Upside today. You'll start earning on everyday fill-ups. Use promo code SPORTS. Get 25 cents back per gallon on your first tank. Upside users are earning hundreds of dollars a year just by driving like they normally do. Cash out whenever you want. Go straight to your bank account or popular gift cards, including Amazon. Get started now with the free Upside app. Promo code SPORTS. Offers vary by user and location. See upside.com for terms and conditions. We'll be right back here on Money Moves, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
While we are keeping tabs the final 15, 20 minutes or so ahead of the NBA trade deadline, if any more moves trickle out. There was a big trade yesterday in the National Hockey League as we welcome you back here to Money Moves. Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. Artemi Panarin traded from the New York Rangers to the Los Angeles Kings, signs a 2-year, $11 million extension. And with that, JVT, the Kings futures odds all got slashed in half. Los Angeles goes from 50-1 to win a Stanley Cup to 25-1. They also jumped to the second shot in the Pacific Division at plus 450, 10-1 in the Western Conference. Right now in the standings, just 3 points out of a playoff spot. Scoring has been an issue for them. And so in my mind, he is a perfect piece to help get them there. I don't know if it warranted that significant of a move, though, given their postseason struggles in recent history.
Yeah, so that's going to be my question then. I mean, obviously, we talk about this all the time with the trade deadline. You don't want to react to it. You want to react before it.
Right.
So it's hard because everything's been cut into this. But as you look at the way that they're priced, would it be too much to say that maybe you want to try to play against them in some form or fashion because these odds have been cut too much? Or do you think this is just a slight overreaction to what this move is?
I think it's more of just a slight overreaction personally. Is he going to be a significant upgrade? Yes, especially given some of their struggles. I mean, they're 28th in goals per game, 29th in the power play. He's not just somebody that's going to score, but he's going to drive offense. He's going to have creativity that they're going to bring to their game. So I think it's big, but to go from 50-1 to 25-1 is a pretty big move, especially considering where they sit in the playoff picture and could very well face an Edmonton Oilers team again in the first round. I mean, they have lost to this team 4 consecutive first round series. And last year we talked about it a lot leading up to the Stanley Cup playoffs, that I thought last year, the way that LA had played at home, how good their defense was, that was the year that they would finally beat that team. And they couldn't do it. And Edmonton ends up going on a run and playing for the Stanley Cup final themselves. Will this move get them over the hump is a big question to me. I would like to see what it looks like. I think it's going to be super fun on that top line alongside Adrian Kempe. I'm more curious now, and you asked the question, though, yesterday, JVT, of what this looks like for the Rangers moving forward. And do you remember what the point prop was at yesterday when you looked at it?
I believe it was 73.5, 74.5, one of those two numbers.
So I do think that like the more I looked into it and I looked at their schedule moving forward, I think that could warrant a bet on the under potentially. It's minus 130 for the over that I'm looking at right now in 74.5. The under is even money for a team that currently has the 3rd fewest points in the league. They're dead last in the Eastern Conference with a negative 27 goal differential, would need 25 points in 26 games to go over that number. And going through their strength of schedule moving forward is pretty middle of the pack. 17 of those games are at home, which normally when you look at someone's schedule, you're like, oh, okay, no, that actually makes me want to lean toward more of an over. They should collect at least a little more points playing on home ice as often as they are getting last change. They have been terrible at home this year. So that actually makes me like it less. I feel like an under, especially for a team that you get rid of Artemi Panarin. There are questions about your free agents now. And as you try to retool this roster, do you end up keeping a guy like Alexis Lafreniere, or do you try to trade him as well because he hasn't delivered what you think he could be? There are a couple free agents that now could be trade bait. I don't know. You asked the question yesterday and I didn't have an instant reaction. And the more I kind of dug into their roster and their schedule moving forward, I think that could be a play.
So I'm not going to cash my Rangers to win the Eastern Conference.
Sorry,
Is that what I'm being told?
I don't think that's going to play out so well, JVT. It's okay. We're working on some of your midseason futures. You know, the Red Wings have a little bit of break here. We'll see if maybe they come out cold.
Yeah, I think they lose yesterday. We're correct. If my brain is mush, but I believe they lost their most recent game.
There you go. That's all you need. Little baby steps.
That's right. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
I was trying to see what the score was yesterday. 4-1 to the Mammoth. So look at you.
Yeah.
There's only one game I bet today, and it's a team that you watch closely as well out here in Vegas in the Golden Knights, and it's coincidental that they're playing the Los Angeles Kings today. Obviously, Panarin will not be playing in that game ahead of the break. Today's the last day ahead of the Olympic break. 7-game slate today. Kind of a funny schedule quirk with these two teams, too, that they play today in LA, and then they will start back for the second portion of the season in Vegas, playing once against each other. The Kings are getting played here a little bit, which has made the Golden Knights number shorter. We're at minus 130 for them now, coming down from around the minus 150 range. And I kind of feel like getting a short number on Vegas, this could be a good approach to buy in on them today. I know that the Golden Knights, and you've talked about them a lot, they're like a bad, good team. I think they're a good team with a goaltending problem. And the Kings, because as we just detailed, are not a good goal scoring team. They're averaging 2.56 goals per game, third worst in the league. They're 30th in shooting percentage, taking on a D-core that only gives up 24 shots on goal per game. I feel like even though they've been bad in net, you're facing a team that can't score really. So this could be kind of an opportunity at a low number to jump on Vegas.
Okay. Yeah, I think that all makes sense. My question was going to be, how does the second leg of the back-to-back affect them? And of course, the second leg of a back-to-back with a big break coming up for some of these guys. I mean, I don't know how many of the VGK guys are involved in the Olympics so for this break, but yeah, right. So I'm just generally, and I think it's more than just Vegas. I'll ask you to zoom out a little bit here, but how do you think this looming break impacts games like today? Is this hey, I'm off on vacation after this? It's not a real vacation, but that vacation feeling. So the Friday before vacation is probably just like a mini Saturday in terms of what you actually do in your job. Maybe the same thing here, or we locked in. What do you think the general effect is on a game like this, and just big picture for some of these guys looking ahead to a break that they might have something to play for, or they might not?
For sure. And I think that's why I said it yesterday and I'll say it again today. I think for this card specifically, tread really lightly, be selective in what you want to bet. Being on the second half of a back-to-back doesn't bother me because the Kings are too after a loss to the Kraken last night. But in terms of like players that are all there mentally and not, I completely agree with your mindset in general. Like a lot of these players' minds are on other things, but I think a lot of teams too want to end this portion of their season on a high note. And Vegas, particularly given the recent struggles they have had, finally breaking through and getting a win yesterday, although it's against the worst team in the league. So I don't know how much stock you're going to put in that in Vancouver. I think this game might actually be a little bit important to them. And they're at home, again, a short price. The Kings have been getting bet here. I think largely because of what you mentioned with how many Golden Knights players they do have that are expected to play in the Olympics coming up. So take that for what you will, but at as low as minus 128 here at Circa, where I'm broadcasting from, I think it could be worth a little bit of a play. That was the only game that I really not dived into. I dove into a handful of games, but this was the only one that was enough to really trigger a bet in my mind. We do have a couple more minutes here, and I know we'll break down the full NBA card a little bit later on, but I did want to get your reaction to what happened with the Knicks and Nuggets yesterday real quickly, because Nikola Jokic has a chance in the end of regulation to hit the buzzer beater, get the win. It doesn't happen. You end up going not only to overtime, but double overtime because of a crazy foul situation that happened at the end of the first overtime. Like, what was your perspective watching all of that unfold yesterday?
Yeah, it was pretty nuts, and it shows kind of the upside of both of these teams when they were playing one another, just how good they can be offensively. I think, defense leaves a little bit to be desired, but we talked about this number yesterday and the fact that maybe the Nuggets were being a little slept on by the betting market. If I remember correctly, we were talking about maybe around 6.5, somewhere in that range. Mm-hmm. Denver is a team that I think is a little bit low in the power rating by the general consensus, and I think it's because of some of the absences, but they are playing much better. But it was a wild game, and the fact that Brunson had the game that he did, I mean, absolutely fantastic. 42 points, 9 assists, 8 rebounds, and to get that win over Denver the way that they did, you do wonder, as you kind of look at this picture, Stormy, the Knicks are, I think, going to be the 2 seed. I don't think this will happen, but if Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's injury is a little bit more serious, and if he actually misses enough time to be threatened to not qualify for MVP, could Jalen Brunson kick his way into this conversation? Ooh. If the Knicks go on a little bit of a run? Look, he plays in New York. He's got the logo and the strength behind him, and it might be enough here. So we'll see. I don't think that would be the case, but I just want to throw it out there. Lots of things can happen here.
I just pulled up the MVP odds. 250-1 on Brunson. SGA, even with the injury, still minus 230. Nikola Jokic, who only has 1 game to spare, plus 350 on the odds board. Luka Doncic, who you said won't win it, 10-1. And your boy Cade Cunningham, I don't know, what was the number you had on him? He's still 20-1 right now, but what future are you sweating out on Cade?
Yeah. I've got 30, and so I think that's definitely worth playing if you're looking at it again. He might get in there. You know, it's funny. I'll probably have to eat crow, I guess, to an extent, because if everybody else gets eliminated, is like Luka maybe going to be the only one who could just, can actually qualify for the MVP. We'll see. And am I wrong in that instance? If that's what happens, I don't know.
That's an interesting question that maybe we can discuss a little bit later, like how you feel about the number cutoff of games that are required for these awards. Yeah. That said, we do have the NFL honors tonight, and some awards will be given out. We also have plenty of, Super Bowl MVP awards still to be had, and we've got MVP bets and bets for the big game, bets for every sport available right now at vsin.com, and our vsin.com/guide is how you can get our Super Bowl betting guide right now, a la carte, just $19.99. We'll be right back.